And welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thank you so much for checking out the series. As always, you know the drill. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. I do 3 interviews every single week, brand new and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. And I am so excited today to be talking with the one and only Eric Andre. Hi, sir.
Hello.
It's let me tell you first off, this past week was the most fun I think I've ever had doing research, because not only was I able to catch your brand new film, Bad Trip, the #1 movie in all of the world, but I also caught the Netflix special as well with Legalize Everything. So it's a week well spent, I should say. The stuff you're doing is outstanding. Congratulations on all the success.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate your Ren and Stimpy dolls and your Sub Pop sticker as well.
Ren and Stimpy got Tron back there.
Shout out to David Bowie. Shout out to David Bowie. You have a wall, a shrine.
Sure, it's 3. You can't tell, but that's Ziggy Stardust.
Oh, yeah. R.I.P. He was a legend.
But seriously, man, it is what you've been doing, and it's not exactly new. Like, you've been on this trip for the decade now or whatever, but seeing it all come into what went into this movie with Bad Trip. Let's start there, because I know reading about this, the journey to get here goes over several years, and you went through, I guess, several incarnations of figuring out the story. Like, what was the journey to that?
My God, it was it was like almost a decade. So as we were finishing editing the 2nd season of the Eric Andre show, Bad Grandpa came out 2013, and it made $1 quadrillion. And my agent called me, John Sachs, shout out. He said, "Hey, Bad Grandpa just made $1 quadrillion. You make hidden camera pranks. You should meet with Jeff Tremaine and see if you and my partners on Eric Andre show can come up with a feature idea." But we had no idea how to write a movie. We just came from a prank writing background, so we didn't know story or anything like the tenets.
That's right.
Tenements or tenants? Tenants live in a building, right?
So it would be tenements. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I know. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know either. I don't even speak English. I memorized all this phonetically leading up.
That's nice.
So and then we were doing the show on and off. So for a few years, we were just like developing an idea with Jeff, me, Kitao, my director, my writing partner, Dan Curry. And then finally we kind of cracked it. We went out, we shopped it around. MGM bought it, and we started writing the movie for MGM in 2016. Then we started filming end of 2016, 2017. Then we needed to do reshoots just to pick up all these pieces to like make the pranks cohesive and fill in the gap, bridge the gaps. And then Rel had his Fox show picked up, so we had to wait like almost a year for Rel to wrap his show. Rel shows wraps. Then we filmed the pickups, and in 2018 finished editing the movie 2019. It's supposed to come out October 2019. The studio pushed because of some movie that nobody watched. They got spooked by. And then finally we're like, all right, we got into South by Southwest 2020. Perfect festival for this movie. You know what I mean? This movie, it's not a Sundance movie. It's a South by movie. You know what I mean? A once in a lifetime global pandemic. Like 5 days before I flew to Austin, shuts everything down. And then the movie was nowhere. So that was like year 6. Then the movie was like in no man's land, because we didn't know if theaters were coming back or what. And then we tried to sell it, and then Netflix bought it, thank God. And then 7.5 years after that Bad Grandpa conversation, we finally put out the movie.
Isn't that amazing? And here you are in 2021, and you're still talking about it. Something that even just the filming, is like you said, what, 2-3 years in the past at this point, a lot of it.
Yeah.
But still, somehow, it's such a cohesive work. I mean, that's, so props, I guess, to that one.
Thanks.
How do you, I'm sure I'm going to ask a few obvious questions here. How do you script something that has so much free will in it? Like, there's I'm going to use the term. There is so much jazz that goes on in a movie like this. How do you figure out to script it like that?
We had the story, and you kind of and you go into each scene with exposition that you want out of the real person you're pranking and the prank, and they're usually tied together. So you have a premise of an idea and certain lines that a certain exposition I needed to get out, and Rel needed to get out, and Tiffany needed to get out, and Michaela needed to get out. And then you have to just improvise within that kind of expositional checklist,
Yeah.
you know. So, and you got to take it scene by scene, you know. So, and you know, I know like for example, like the musical scene at the mall. I knew when I sat down next to that guy at the bench that I needed it to feel like he was coming up with the idea for me to go on this epic adventure and like being my support system in that scene. But our ethos going into this movie was no fake reactions. You can't give a person a line like, hey, can you say this line? We need this for exposition. We were like, they have to say it genuinely. So I actually talked to like 6 or 7 people on that park bench for like 3 hours until we got that guy to say that specific, like, I say, you know what, man, go for it. Like that little, like whatever it is, like 5 seconds of the movie took us like half a day to get. And then once I got that, I was like in my mind, thank God. And then I broke out into musical, started dancing in the streets. So that's kind of how it works. You know, I know my character has to get out a certain amount of exposition. I had scripted as much as I possibly could, but it's almost like a Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry David doesn't even like script the dialogue anymore. He just knows he goes into each scene with like, this is my goal out of this scene. You improvise with it.
You're leading from behind in a lot of ways. I mean, what a tightrope, what an interesting kind of way to spend your day, something like that.
Yeah, it is the most tedious filmmaking.
Yeah. Are you writing on the fly too? Does that happen? Like once you figure out the situation, does that? I mean, I know that happens in a lot of movies anyway. Like, oh, we're switching out that scene. Here's something we just wrote. But does that happen in a, I guess, more specific way with something like this?
Yeah, I mean, writing on the fly in the form of improvisation. But again, I know I need like a specific plot point out of it to drive the story forward. So as long as like I achieve that plot point, then you know, and we pull off the prank properly,
right?
Then like it was mission accomplished. It was like a much more complex Eric Andre show. You just need to pull off the prank. You don't need any exposition. In fact, like you don't want a narrative for any Eric Andre show. You want it to be completely absurd stream of consciousness, you know, ADD. So this is a different process.
Yeah. Which, by the way, one of the great genius shows that's been on the air for the past few years. I'd always wanted like the human embodiment of Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and I feel like I got that with you guys. Like that was
totally. And my mentor, Mike Lazo, created. He was the president of the Adult Swim. He just retired. He created Space Ghost, so I would go to him. He really mentored me in the early days.
Yeah, there's of course, you know, a lot of emphasis on these pranks, but there is the story here, and you play a character. I think you've called it maybe a heightened version of yourself, but this character, Chris, how much do you consider someone like this as backstory? Because he is so genuine. Like there's so much heart. Like he means everything that's going on.
Yeah, we had to figure that out early on, that like my pranks in the movie could never be intentionally destructive. Eric Andre show, I'm like an anarchist caveman. I can be as destructive and offensive as possible because you're not following my character. I'm changing character each segment in the streets, and then in the studio I'm like intentionally dysfunctional, and you're only following me for 11 and a half minutes. For a movie that needs that we wanted to have even a broader appeal too, and a world appeal, you have to have a sympathetic protagonist that you can like empathize with and sink your teeth into, because you're dragging the audience across 90 minutes of footage. So like the you know, that's like 10 times the runtime of Eric Andre show episode.
Right.
So runtime plays a big part in a medium's needs and principles, which I had to learn the hard way over and over and over again.
But you know, on top of that, the I guess the sociological experiment that comes along with any kind of something like this, a prank show or something, like watching the reactions and then figuring out how those people would follow that reaction. Like I'll
Right.
pull out a couple different scenarios here. At one point, you put your hand in a blender.
Right.
No one helped you, at least not in the scene that I saw. Like everybody ran.
Right. Right. I think that was just like a primal reaction to fear. I mean, that's like a horror movie. So I think like I don't know. I was also like misbehaving all the way up to the
Sure.
you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know if I was generating a lot of sympathy from the people I was pranking up until the moment anyway. I think they were ready to leave. They were ready to be done with me. But I think that's just primal fear and shock.
But that's what like, does that stuff ever surprise you? Like the other turn on this, like Tiffany Haddish's character is escaping, prison from under a bus, and there's a guy, wiping graffiti away, and sure enough, like he has the sweetest tone in his voice the whole time that he's trying to help her, but obviously trying not. Like, is it surprising even to you the reactions that you get in these moments?
Yeah, you never really. You're surprised every day, or you're also surprised because like you'll go into some pranks thinking like, oh, this is gonna be the best prank of all time, and then it'll be a total dud, and then vice versa. You're like, this prank might work, might not, and then it becomes like the signature. Bird Up from Eric Andre show was like that. I was like, we shot the first one in like 20 minutes because it was like about to rain. We were about to break for lunch. I was like, this bit is stupid. Like we don't have a bit. This is like I'm already over it. I was like over it, and then when I got to the editing bay. I was like, this is like gonna be the most iconic bit of the series. So you never know. Yeah, you're always surprised.
Yeah,
but you're always surprised, and you're frustrated a lot too because it's just unpredictable how people are going to react to each scene.
Yeah. But like I said, there's got to be something that you can learn about humanity in some way with all of this. And I'll bring up the I mentioned your stand-up special on Netflix that came out last year with Legalize Everything. Like, you have these absurd moments, which again, you are a master at these absurd moments and everything, but it doesn't take you paying too much attention to realize that you're putting some important messages across here. Whether you're talking about the cops and reggae music or whatever, or the war on drugs. I mean, you're taking these big important topics and presenting them and diffusing them maybe at the last second. How much of that sort of same thought goes into a movie like this? Are you trying to get a point across, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think so. I think like if you're not trying to get a point across, it's pointless. But yeah, you got to thread the needle because you don't want to be pretentious. I call it like highbrow, lowbrow. You got to, especially with the stand-up special, I was trying to like not, you don't want to be preachy. You want to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
So you really want to Trojan horse the message within a silly, stupid joke. But yeah, the show has a different message. The stand-up special has a different message, and the movie has a different message. Each project kind of has its own DNA.
So what's the message on the movie? If we hit it on the nose here,
I think the movie is Americans aren't as divided and antipathetic as most media would have you believe. There's a lot of humanity and unity amongst working class everyday Americans, and people are really trying to look out for one another despite their color or creed. And I think that the elite billionaire oligarch class pits the working class against one another to kind of divide and conquer. I mean, that's what you want.
Well, it's true.
But I think that there's like much more common ground and much more unity amongst the proletariat.
I mean, I'd like to hope so. I'm in Kentucky. It's hard. I'm in a blue town in a very red state, and you have these moments where I just throw my hands up and I know that at the base level, family members that we're very on the different sides of the fence. We're both going to laugh our asses off at this movie.
Right. I want this movie to unite and heal America. And I think like that's also a misconception. I think like we're very in my therapist called it splitting. We're very like red state, blue state, nothing in between. I think like each issue, each political topic has its own nuanced set of problems, and everybody has their own set of nuanced opinions. I just think, and even if we disagree, just because you disagree with somebody doesn't mean that they're your enemy. But I think the previous administration was just trying to pit us against one another constantly, and we're literally killing each other. And I, I think that's what's covered in the news a lot. But I'm glad that we covered like a softer, more sweeter, more humanitarian cross section of America, and because people are like genuinely trying to save my life or Rel's life, um, like throughout the movie, people like sympathize and empathize with my plight. So, yeah, I don't know.
I think that's important that I don't know if it was meant to be like this, but that you put it in the South, that you did. I mean, it starts in Florida. You ended up
Yeah,
in, the deep South.
I'm from Florida, and
Sure.
like Maria, we knew we wanted to do a big finale prank in an art gallery because that seemed like a high stakes place to destroy because of the value of art. So we would like New York City made sense. So like we kind of started with the top and bottom of the road trip. And then you just naturally go through the South. And every road trip movie has that kind of like honky tonk bar scene where, like, Eddie Murphy in 48 Hours goes into the redneck bar and he's like, "Oh shit! Like you ain't from around here, are you?" We knew we wanted that iconic scene, but even in that scene in the country bar, I was met with sympathy. You know what I mean? Like that woman was, especially the main woman that's trying to help me up after I'm like, fell off the bar, was genuine and sincerely trying to help.
I'm glad you actually brought up, some of the other road trip movies. There's a moment where you and where Chris and the character Bud are in the car together, and you're both singing "Thank You for Being a Friend." And I was taken back to that moment in Tommy Boy where, David Spade and Chris Farley's character is kind of doing the same thing. Were you looking at other road trip movies and kind
Oh
of
yeah,
doing the checklist?
big time. Other road trip movies and other buddy movies, Tommy Boy, Dumb and Dumber, Wayne's World, National Lampoon's Vacation. We were like, even Meg Ryan movies. We were watching like rom-coms. We were watching When Harry Met Sally, because a buddy story is a love story between two best friends. Super Bad, anything that was like a buddy story, a rom-com, a love story, or a road trip comedy, especially like the more iconic ones from the 80s and 90s that I grew up on. We wanted to like intentionally kind of copy and paste the most iconic tropes from those movies, because that's like very satisfying to see those tropes play out in real life. There's a scene where Rel and I have like a major falling out, kind of bottom of Act 2. And then we have like a kind of a makeup scene where I apologize, on a bus to him. And we got that scene like directly from When Harry Met Sally, I think, or like Love Actually with Hugh Grant. We watched like a bunch of rom-coms and kind of just like emulated like all the classic. It's always like somebody stopping somebody at a movie at a airport or a bus. It's always like the one lover is traveling away, but like our characters were broke, so we thought a Greyhound was more appropriate than an airport.
Right.
Plus, like producing a prank in an airport is next to impossible. So yeah, we were purposely trying to emulate like the most iconic, identifiable, archetypal tropes in those movies, because when you cram them in public, it makes it like all the more richer.
Yeah. What do you call it? I forget. Just looking for the, I don't know if it's Easter eggs really, but kind of finding those moments. But like I said, with Tommy Boy or Harry Met Sally. What about your own? I mean, we've all done the road trips. Were you able to use any of your own? Do you have those stories too that you kind of slide in there every now and then? The real life stuff.
Yeah, I did one. Me and my director drove from Los Angeles to New York before we got into making the movie, because we wanted to take like a. I never drove cross country before, and I don't think anything specific outside of like, there's a scene where like Rel like eats a bad moon pie and he has indigestion and he has to use a porta potty, and like singing, thank you for being a friend together, like sing along, carpool karaoke kind of moments. Those moments like come out of like just the road trips you experience growing up with friends and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
nothing specific. It wasn't like I did LSD with a snowboarder in Vail, Colorado, and I said, I'm on to something here. It wasn't so.
Doesn't make it in like that, right? Yeah. I gotta ask about a couple of the really iconic moments in this movie. First off, Chinese finger trap.
Yes.
Where did that idea come from?
Came out of the first writer's room. You know, we just, same with the Eric Andre show, we just invite all our favorite comedian friends into a room for a few weeks, and we just drink coffee and riff until like one little nugget like that comes out. And I think somebody just drew on like the dry erase board behind us, like our two penises and a Chinese finger trap, and all like 10 writers looked up and just started cracking up.
It's that easy. It sounds easy anyway.
Well, it will, it takes a lot of coffee and a lot of days. It takes like a lot of bad ideas and throwing spaghetti at the wall before you get a little gem like that. So you really have to crawl through the sewer.
Yeah.
Crawl through the Shawshank Redemption sewer before you get to paradise.
I feel like that's an easy seg also to asking about you and the gorilla, because at one point, not only are you basically getting molested, raped by the gorilla, I don't know if you're raped because you sort of look a little bit like you're into it, but you end up with gorilla jizz all over your face.
Yeah.
Is there a point in that where you say, this is my career, this is what I'm doing today? Does it feel different than the other days?
Well, we thought that prank wasn't going to be possible. We're like, nobody's going to buy this. Like, there's no way. Because, like, it's a guy in a gorilla costume, too, So we were like, that's one of the first things we did. But we're like, but if we pull this off, it will be the greatest scene in the movie. That came out of Harambe. So when we started writing the movie, that gorilla at whatever zoo it was, the Cincinnati Zoo or whatever, kid fell into the gorilla enclosure, and the gorilla was whipping the kid around. The kid was like 3 years old, and the zoo rangers, I don't know what they're called, zookeeper had to kill the gorilla. And there was outrage from animal rights activists, like, you shouldn't have killed the gorilla. And then the zookeepers had to explain, like, gorillas only protect their own, like, pact, and the kid would have been killed, yada yada yada. So we were just fascinated with that Harambe story. And then we were like, what if I fall into a gorilla enclosure and the gorilla starts whipping me around? And then, like, one of the writers was like, no, what if the gorilla starts fucking you in the ass? At one point, it was like, what if one gorilla starts fucking you in the ass? And then somebody else was like, another gorilla should come up and start fucking you in the mouth. And then, like, a giraffe and a rhinoceros should come in. And, like, but we're like, we can't do this with real animals. We can't train real exotic animals to fuck me. So we were like, went to a special effects house, like, how much is two gorilla outfits? And they told us the price, and we're like, got it. We're only having one gorilla. Fuck yeah. So that came out of Harambe, and no, I was proud of the jizz in the face. I knew it was gonna just like light the theater up. When we had our first like test screenings, I mean, like that scene just blew the roof off.
Yeah.
That
was there's some cut scenes that you guys have talked about, and I want to quickly ask about one of them, because there was an exorcism that didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
What? That sounds amazing. I guess I don't, in my head at least it does.
You're gonna be able to see it, so it's not a total loss. It just was too supernatural to be in the body of the movie. It kind of like it ruined the stakes of all the other scenes, because like nothing kind of mattered after you watch that. When it was in the body of the movie, it was like, oh, okay, so like there can just be a ghost possession in the middle of this thing, so like nothing else matters. So in the body of the movie, that scene doesn't work, but on its own, as like an independent scene, it's really, really funny.
Yeah.
In effect. So we're gonna release that soon.
Like, what? And more of them? Is that kind of the plan? Some of the
we had one prank that failed, that Chris Rock was in, that really broke our hearts, because like we got Chris Rock to fly down to Atlanta. He like flew himself down, put himself up. He got paid like whatever, $400 or something. He did it just out of like his love for me and Rel and Tiffany. And the prank just failed. It was a hitchhiker prank where he was like, Chris was playing a cop. We were driving, and we got this guy off Craigslist to get in our car, and we're gonna like frame it in the movie like he was a hitchhiker. the guy like was like kind of like off, and he like didn't believe even like the shit I was saying. So by the time Chris Rock pulled him over, he was like, Chris fucking Rock, no way. And we like disguised Chris as best as we could. We put big aviator glasses and a cop helmet on him, but his voice is so recognizable and iconic. As soon as he started talking, the guy didn't buy it, and we weren't able to like pull off the prank, and it was really really heartbreaking because it would have like just been, if we had pulled it off, it would have been one of the best scenes in the movie. And I felt bad cutting Chris, who's my hero, out of the movie, but the prank failed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was no fault of Chris's. So we're gonna release that though. It is funny, the footage. He's like fucking with me, and some of that stuff, those outtakes actually work better on their own than in the body of the movie anyway. So I think it's like kind of the best place to screen them is just Netflix popping them on YouTube.
Sure. I can't wait to see them. I mean, again, there's so many great moments all the way through this. I feel like, not a sequel, but we're getting kind of that extra stuff with it. So I look forward to that. I quickly just want to compliment you. You brought it up earlier, but I Saw a Girl Today ends up being such a great song in itself. I mean, even beyond the prank, just listening to that.
It's on Spotify. I didn't even know it was me. That's cool.
It's different than, what you do with Blarf. I got to say, cease and desist. That made me feel weird.
That's not me. I have no idea who that guy is.
You should try it out sometime. It makes you feel weird. It's some fun stuff. But seriously, man, you're incredible. I'm sorry if I'm not trying to blow smoke up your way and everything, but
man, butter my balls, Kyle. I got low self-esteem. I'll take it.
I do love what you do. I'll quickly just ask the easy question. What comes next? What else is the rest of the year looking like for you?
I would love to get vaccinated and travel. You know what I mean? That'd be cool. I'm working on some things. I want to definitely do more hidden camera stuff. I'll prank till the day I die, but also some scripted comedy, and I have to be vague and ambiguous in this comment because
I totally understand.
I'm contractually not allowed to mention the rest of my year.
Yeah,
but just stay tuned and you'll see.
Dude, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this. Congratulations on Bad Trip and all the success, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks so much, Kyle. Talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye.